Know-it-all listeners, what's good? Here we are for another Know-it-all podcast. This happens to be Tuesday, so what we're here for today is Tate Tuesday. And we're not a lot going on in the sports world this week outside the Olympics. We'll talk about that sometime in a coming episode here to wrap all that up. But today I want to talk about with the NBA draft happening last week, and that's what we talked about Sunday, was wrapping up the NBA draft and the NFL football season coming up real soon. I want to kind of talk about where they intersect and the contrast between the NFL draft and the NBA draft. Both drafts are where collegiate players are selected to go to professional teams, both in the NBA and the NFL. In the NFL, there's 7 rounds, 259 picks, I believe. In the NBA, there's 2 rounds, 30 picks each round, 1 pick per team unless a pick is traded, for a total of 60 picks. So it would seem the opportunity in the NFL is much, much greater because there's more picks and more collegiate athletes are getting selected. In the NBA, not so much. In the NBA, teams draft on potential. In the NBA, you can, up until recently, now you have to have at least 1 year out of high school or in college or in a development league before you can go to the NBA. It used to be you can come straight out of high school. In the NFL, you have to be 3 years removed from your high school graduating class. So, we're getting older athletes, a little more developed athletes in the NFL. In the NFL, I think picks matter more because you do have more, but because you have more, the ones you pick, you better hit on some of them. In the NBA, teams draft a lot for potential. They'll draft some kid that they've seen film of that was real good, even overseas, somewhere in the European League or something like that. So we've had trades in the NBA. One, for example, is when the Milwaukee Bucks traded Robert Tractor Traylor, who was a great player in Michigan with a ton of upside. R.I.P. Tractor Traylor. He died a few years back. But they traded him for Dirk Nowitzki and Pat Garrity. I just recently found out that Dirk Nowitzki wasn't drafted by the Dallas Mavericks. He's an all-time Dallas Maverick great. But anyway, they traded Tractor Traylor for Dirk Nowitzki and Pat Garrity. Then turned around and traded Pat Garrity to the Phoenix Suns for Steve Nash. 2 Hall of Famers. Teams just took those draft picks that they had and just kind of gambled them, gave them up because they're not as important in the NBA, and turned those picks into 2 Hall of Famers. Kobe Bryant was drafted 13th overall by the Charlotte Hornets, lifetime Laker, probably arguably the greatest Laker of all time, right up there. They traded him for Vlade Divac. The Charlotte Hornets gave up on Kobe Bryant. And they, teams, when they make bad decisions like that, they never really rebound from those decisions. When the last time we heard anything good about the Charlotte Hornets? Never. And even the Milwaukee Bucks, they're just now rebounding from the mistake that they made, probably giving up Dirk Nowitzki. They just won the championship, but they could have had a championship, probably 10, 12 years ago if they had kept Dirk Nowitzki. But I think they picked Giannis at pick 15. Another thing, in the NFL, Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, greatest football player of all time, up there with him and Jim Brown, in my opinion. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick number 199. And he's the greatest football player of all time. So you get more stabs at it, you get more shots at it in the NFL. And because you do, you better make a lot of those probably work. There's been other all-time greats drafted late in the NFL, like Antonio Brown was a 6th-round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Terrell Davis is a Hall of Famer, was a late-round pick. And, in the NBA, I'd say the latest round pick that really has done something, taking the league by storm, was this year's MVP, Nikola Jokic. He was picked number 41 overall, I believe, by Denver. No, he was drafted by Denver. And he was the MVP. That's the latest an NBA MVP has ever been drafted. Before this year, and he was 41, it was 15, and that was Giannis. Kobe was 13, won the MVP. But usually in the NBA, if you don't have a top 5 pick, you're just getting a really good career player. You're not really going to necessarily hit and land on a superstar. But those are just some of the takes I have on the contrast between the NBA and NFL draft. Join us tomorrow. We'll be doing a crossover broadcast, and we'll be guests on the BTSC Behind the Steel Curtain broadcast, talking about the upcoming Hall of Fame game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Dallas Cowboys. Myself and Maud will be on there. He'll be giving the Cowboy perspective because he's a Cowboy super fan. We know that. And just another bit of knowledge I want to drop on you because, we know so much. We know it all. Dave Winfield was a professional baseball player drafted by the San Diego Padres. Later played for a lot of different teams. I remember him most as a New York Yankee. He was one of my favorite players back then. But he was a 3-sport athlete and was the only professional athlete drafted in all 3 sports. He was drafted by the San Diego Padres in the MLB, the Atlanta Hawks in the NBA, and the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL. So just a little tidbit of knowledge for you. I bet a lot of you didn't know that. But anyway, check us out this Sunday at 5 p.m. for our regular podcast time. We'll be talking about fantasy football. And hey, have a good Tuesday. Peace.